you can do it. And so today, for those who haven't met me, I think we all met me. So it's Anna, Crona, we have David, we have Sarah, and we have Douglas filming and taking pictures, and Julia out there. So they can help you with any technical issues or any questions you might have. And we've got a question about the presentation, so we will make sure that you will get it the day after the event, or at least we can download them. Come on in. There's space over there if you want to. Yeah, no problem. So, also before we get going, again, I would say a big thank you, Jolanta, Sarah, Department of International Trade in the Nordics and the Baltics. We have 7 countries involved in this program. It's really, really fun and exciting, actually. First time I think we are working with such a large group. So it's happy to make that work. And we also have other companies here or organizations. Embassy of Sweden is really supporting us, and FCA, who are joining us in a second. And we have the sponsors, Maryhill, Louise, there we go. And Burger Salmon, Alex, there we go. And SLB, Nick Blake, thank you so much also for hosting us here today. Very generous coffees and teas, really lovely. So we would love to hear a little bit about SLB.
Sure. So, welcome everybody to SEB London branch. My name's Nick Blake. I'm the head of the transaction banking business here in London. A couple of things for those of you who don't know much about SEB. Of course, it's a Swedish heritage organisation, but it's been in London since the 1960s. We were here as part of what was the Scandinavian Bank then, conglomerate of a few banks from across the Scandi region, sitting in one office and one workspace in London. Since the 1980s, late 80s, we've been SEB as a branch of the SEB Bank in London, in the offices around here, and we moved into this space about 5 years ago. The other interesting thing is that one of our former members of staff was a previous Lord Mayor of London as well, so we've been very well connected into the City of London and welcomed here as an organisation. So welcome. We are one of 21 country sites for SEB globally, and London is the newest home market branch for the bank. So very welcome here. I understand yesterday you were in level 39 and had a good session, so we obviously can't compete in terms of height of that meeting, but hopefully you get to enjoy the views of the Thames and St Paul's Cathedral that we can offer from here. You're very welcome, and happy to give our premises over to Swedish Chamber and do our bit if we can. You also asked me to say a few words on some of the things that may be top of commercial banks' minds at the moment. You'll be pleased to know I've kept them onto one post-it note, so I won't be here very long. And I'm also conscious we have the FCA in the room as well somewhere, so I'll be very careful what I say. But I think, like most banks who are in sort of commercial banking, retail banking, or those activities, we have a number of things, opportunities and challenges on our doorstep, which I think are relevant to a number of the propositions that I've seen in advance from some of your organisations. So I thought I'd share a few top of mind things. On the technology front, I think clearly big legacy financial institutions come with a legacy technology stack as well. Most of us are spending quite a lot of time trying to digitise the organisation, not just the front end to the customers. I think banks have generally been relatively good at that, but all the way through the process right to the back, and SEB, like many others, is completely rebuilding its payments infrastructure, its general ledger system, to simplify things, to make them a bit more agile. It's been a major issue for a number of the banks. Then I think we look at the tools that are available to us now, and I think a lot of major banks are getting their heads around AI, robotics, machine learning, all those kind of things, only to find out that we're then needing to deal with Web 3.0, decentralised finance and things like that. And I think that is a new area for a lot of banks to get their heads around. What does that mean? And then a key factor for us is, we are trusted institutions at a number of levels, and increasing threats around cyber security are taking up a significant amount of bank resource, time and money to give ourselves robust platforms so we protect our customers and their data. Current data, probably the next point. Not only do we sit on a lot of data, as you'll be aware, we need to be better at storing it, managing it, and making it useful for business purposes as well. So a lot of banks are creating data lakes, creating data infrastructures, moving things into a more agile environment so they can use their data in a good way. And when people come with propositions that we can work with them on, we can be a bit more agile in terms of the way we operate with that data as well. Our customers also are changing their expectations. I'm not in the consumer banking world, but from a corporate banking perspective, our customers are changing the way they work and what they expect from financial institutions as well. A lot of our customers are moving to a sort of asset-light type model as a service, as many of you will be familiar with. They're looking at things like information over the IT infrastructure. They're looking at digital-first strategies, and a lot of that means that the way we service our customers, we need to operate through different channels to our customers, not just the traditional spaces we used to, our own branches, our internet banking connections, and things like that, but being available for our customers where they operate, and that quite often means working in someone else's environment, whether that be a third-party vendor, whether it's an enterprise resource planning system. There's a lot of places that we now have to be able to operate to be close to our customers, which I think is something good to think about. I could sit here and talk about regulatory change all afternoon, but I won't. Suffice to say, there's a lot of it. It's coming at banks very, very quickly, and it's large by scale. And a lot of that means a lot of our resources are deployed against making sure that we're complying with the regulations, and that's incredibly important to us. We think it's useful on the basis that it makes us better institutions, but I'd say not to be underestimated. Once you're in the financial services industry, the amount of resource you put against regulation is just going up year by year. And on the back of that, perhaps the focus also on increased focus on financial crime. There's a lot of concerns around terrorist financing, sanctions checking, a number of things. And again, a lot of the banks have done a lot of that work previously on a fairly manual basis. To deal with it at scale, on the speed you have to deal with it, there's a lot of work going into automation and activity on that side. And I see a few of the propositions included activity in that space. And then last, I mean, there's a few overriding macro themes that we're dealing with, digitisation being a major one for the banks. But the other one I think is worth talking about just very briefly is sustainability and ESG. The need to deploy capital at scale to the climate challenge is significant, and I think banks have traditionally had a significant hand-on in redeploying capital to the right places where it's needed. That now needs to be focused to the areas where it's needed from an ESG sustainability perspective, and I think there's been a lot of work going on the climate side, specifically on sort of carbon reduction, where a lot of financing's gone. But the trend at the moment is much more looking into the social elements of ESG and looking into biodiversity, water, supply chain issues and things like that. So that's really a growing trend that I think the banks are seeing. And I know, again, it's on a number of your propositions, there's a theme around that, so it won't be unusual. So with that, I promise not to take too long, but hopefully that was helpful context setting for us. And I'll step down.
Thank you very much.